Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Leo and Cancer rising. These two signs are adjacent to one another in astrology, and so if your sun is in Leo, it's very possible that you have Mercury, Venus, or Mars, maybe more than one of those planets in Cancer, and that will enhance that influence from the rising sign, because typically I would say that the sun might outshadow the rising sign when you have this combination. Leo is larger than life, but it might tone it down a little bit, especially, like I said, if you have inner planets in Cancer or Virgo, which is on the other side of Leo and is more nondescript, more, you know, low key. Leo is anything but low key. And the other thing, too, is that the moon sign can be anything. So that could tip it in a different direction, too. What if your moon is in Aries? Then you might really be quite feisty. But anyway, I do think this is an interesting combination in the sense that the rising sign is the first impression that you make on people because it can be the way that you act when you are in the presence of other people. It can be your demeanor. So it can even be like, the kind of moods that you have, that you bring into the world. Because some people, they kind of have a very like overly serious demeanor or facial expressions, but when they are among people that they really care about and trust, they might have a totally different persona that is much more, or personality that is much more open and playful and all of those things. So they may only show that to their inner circle. Now, I said the word persona and then I said personality, and I'm not sure if these are interchangeable terms. I think of persona as kind of that mask. I don't even like the word mask because it sounds like the person is deliberately being phony. But you could almost look at it as, in some cases, like defense mechanisms that can all translate into the person's behavioral patterns that they employ, because that is how they cope with dealing with life and dealing with people that they don't know or that they're not really close to, is that they have this, you could call it like an image or what have you. But like I said, sometimes the person can act differently when they are around loved ones. And when, you have two signs that are in harmonious aspect from the sun to the ascendant, and I would say even if they're not officially a trine or a sextile, for instance, I still think that they're going to be harmonious because of the signs that are represented. When you have that going on, there's probably a lot less need for that kind of outer, cover personality or demeanor, because the person has nothing really to protect. But adjacent signs are not necessarily all that compatible in terms of what they represent. So there may be that this may kind of come from childhood, even if you felt like you were different than other people in the family of origin. So that's another defense mechanism where the person kind of like puts up this armor, if you will, to try to feel stronger and more confident. So with a Cancer rising, you're talking about, like I said, this is Cancer's ruled by the moon. So because it's your ruler, you may be the kind of person who does tend to be moody. And moodiness, yeah, I don't know if moody specifically, I when I think of somebody who's moody, I mean, usually I'm thinking about somebody who is more sullen or emotionally charged in a more like a sulking type of a attitude or what have you. What I really mean is somebody whose moods are changeable. So they may wear their heart on their sleeve. They could be the kind of person who is very definitely they're the kind of person who is very sensitive, but that's not specifically connected to well, it is moodiness, I guess you would say. A person who is moody to me ultimately is someone who when I say wears their heart on their sleeve, they let everyone know what they're feeling. Now, this is not something that everybody does. A person could be going through incredible heartache in their private life, and they put on a happy face. Is that good? Is that bad? Or is that indifferent? I think in life we do have to put aside our feelings sometimes when we're dealing with certain issues because we can't inflict our emotions and problems on everyone. And if somebody's in a social, like somebody's doing their job and they are upset about something, and so they're grumpy that day and they're grumpy towards customers, yeah, I think that's emotions getting out of control and the person allowing them to affect how they treat other people because they're wearing their heart on their sleeve. And on the other hand, I think it can really mean somebody who is very in touch with other people's feelings. Um, and not all, this is Cancer rising, but I'm just saying with the sign of Cancer, not all cancers are created equally and will have the same level of sensitivity. So, with the rising sign, you may get more of the appearance, like what does a crab look like? Well, um, I read in one book that the body type of a Cancer individual, I think it's like long torsoed, which means shorter legs. And because they're saying that the shape of a crab could be like that, and that there's kind of this strange like shuffling quality when the person walks, because if you think about a crab and how it scuttles on the sand, that it could be something like that. But I don't know if that translates into how people walk. Only you would know that, or you could ask somebody if you walk like that. But one of the characteristic things I would say, and I'm thinking specifically of women, is the moon face, the really round face. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with gender, but I'm thinking of Linda Ronstadt. Now, Linda Ronstadt, I don't know what her rising sign is, but her sun sign is Cancer. And I do believe that the sun sign can definitely affect appearance as well. But I'm bringing her up knowing that she has a prominent Cancer being the sun sign, and how that really her face is very round. And also, another thing with all water signs is there might be a tendency to retain water. So this can give a fuller appearance sometimes, which actually, I have seen this, when you look at celebrities where you see so many different pictures of them and they look different, within very short time frames. And you think, oh my God, did they go on a crash diet and they lost like 10 pounds? It could be water weight. But anyway, The thing about Cancer that I notice, with the rising sign, what can happen is that as a child, you may be what I term very insensitively as a crybaby, because Cancer being so sensitive may trigger um, you as a child to cry at the drop of a hat, when you feel embarrassed, when you feel afraid. And I remember when I was a kid that there would be children who it was so easy to make cry that it was almost like, I think other children did it on purpose because they knew they could get that reaction from them. So that might be, the Cancers and the Pisces. I don't know about Scorpio. Scorpio's always a little bit, iffy because they're so um, intense. But yeah, so that might be something that you have had since childhood, a very sensitive nature, that even if you have the sun in Leo, and fire signs sometimes get accused of being insensitive, I should know I'm a Sagittarian, and I think that whether somebody actually comes out and says it to you, they still may kind of do a double take or just, express displeasure through their facial gestures or expressions regarding their displeasure at a fire sign's way of handling situations. But the thing about Cancer rising, and I would say this about the sign of Cancer in general, is a hypersensitivity, which means that the person, sometimes they can dish it out, but they can't take it. Sometimes a Cancer person can be very witty. I think they said that there were a lot of Cancer comedians. I can't remember, but I certainly can think of some. And, I'm trying to think of why would they be so like that. And I think it's because Cancer is a cardinal sign. So there can be an aggressive part of Cancer, but because it's a water sign, it might sometimes be passive aggressive, and sometimes things like sarcasm are used as tools to, get one's point across regarding times when the person feels like irked about something, but doesn't come right out and say it. But I also think that um, the hypersensitivity is because Cancer may feel very vulnerable, and maybe it doesn't like the fact that it feels vulnerable, so it gets angry about it. Um, and I do think that there sometimes is that bit of the martyrdom that comes out with Cancer. Cancer people, and I would assume the rising sign is no exception to that, can definitely milk it for all it's worth when they're looking, remember, they're a water sign that happens to be a cardinal sign. So they can be like a go-getter when it comes to looking for love and trying to get as much love as possible. Um, they have a lot of love to give as well. But they are looking for love. And sometimes people erroneously believe that in order to get love, they have to manipulate their way into it by guilting someone, by, um, making people feel sorry for them, like they are always being taken advantage of, and that they're always taking care of other people, but they're not getting the same in return. So if you see yourself doing something like this, or regarding your relationships in that way, you know where it comes from. Of course, you might have Mars in Cancer, and that would really describe the way that you go about things. So or Venus in Cancer, the way that you love can be a very maternal sort of love. And, speaking of manipulation, they do say this sometimes about mothers, is that there can be, in some cases, mothers who manipulate their children. Why do they do that? Well, it all boils down to, when you think about it, looking for love. But when children are getting older, what are they doing? They are breaking away from the bosom of the family and striking out on their own and becoming their own person. And if a woman, because they are usually the primary caretakers, feels threatened by that because they've built their identity around that, what are they going to do? They want to keep that child close by. So by any means necessary, as Malcolm X said, what is that going to involve? Maybe it'll involve guilting. Cancers have perfected that art. So the important takeaway, though, is that this is your rising sign. So this may be a defense mechanism. And, it might be possible that you kind of lapse into that from time to time when you feel threatened, when you feel underappreciated. But your sun sign really does call the shots, in a sense, because it is the center of your universe, if you will being the sun sign. And so that can indicate that this for you is much more influential. And so you may pursue things very assuredly, but it's one of those things where I could see that you might have that kind of Achilles heel, that you get triggered, or pain body. You get triggered by something, and then it kind of comes out like that, even though you are confident. And with Leo being the sun sign represented here, it could be problematic if you are not aware of this, because it could lead you to behave in a way that is more of the shadow side of Leo, the arrogance, the kind of the petty tyrant energy, because you actually do feel vulnerable and therefore insecure. And you don't like that feeling, because Leos are all about feeling like they are, the cream of the crop. So that's the thing that you have to be aware of. And when you feel vulnerable, when you feel insecure, sit in that feeling and say, what am I telling myself that this means? Does this mean that I'm pathetic, because I don't feel secure in this situation? Who do I really need to impress? With Leo, the person loves to receive compliments, loves to be admired. That's part of that. And that's where that, extroverted, loving to be on stage energy also comes from, is the total extrovert. By the way, because Cancer is on the ascendant, you may not be that total extrovert. You may have like inhibitions, or feel a certain kind of insecurity about, something. Could even be like just on the emotional level. And maybe it just kind of fluctuates like the moon, where sometimes it's stronger than others. So yeah, that combination is, I would say this is a very creative combination. So definitely the performer vibes are here. The creator vibes are here too. Another area where you would excel is working with children, for sure, like a teacher, especially kindergarten, early childhood, or elementary school, because you have that inner child that Leo represents, but you also have this nurturing instinct that is built into you. Maybe when you were younger, you had to take care of your siblings. And so I could even see this combination choosing not to have children if they grew up having to take care of siblings because, it may have felt like a burden in some cases if you didn't feel like you had freedom. Now, that might not be true 100% of the time, but this combination would definitely be good with children and maybe be interested in working with them in some way. I think this is a good combination for anything connected to economics in particular, or, well, I don't know if I should say that because really the rising sign, I don't say that there is much influence with the rising sign in terms of the type of career they choose. The reason I talk about it in connection with, the sun sign and one's career choices is because when it comes to working with children, having that type of demeanor is very key. So if somebody has had experience growing up taking care of siblings, then they are natural and it's like they have this prior experience, even if they've never held a job before. They know what it's like to take care of children. But with like when I was talking about finances, with Cancer rising, there may have been some reason or opportunity to learn how to be economical, frugal, what have you. I always think of that with Cancer and Capricorn. And the ascendant can, give a window into maybe the family of origin, what type of, situation that was there. And Cancer can give the person a great education on financial, like saving money and things of that nature. I think they say that there are more billionaires there at Cancer than anything else. And I just said that about comedians, so I don't know if I'm getting my signals crossed. But yeah, so because Leo loves to live large. That was a tongue twister. And because of that, they may be free spending, but because Cancer is at the ascendant, they may have grown up with a lot more controlled finances. And I'm just saying this from the perspective that I think a sign like Cancer is more inclined to save than to spend. But in general, we would look at the sun sign primarily for the career matters. And of course, placements in the 6th and 10th houses. So if you're the kind of person that has always had kind of that financial wherewithal, that could be the accountant, the investment banker, and things like that. But usually, Leo can do just about anything, but they have leadership abilities. So this is a perfect combination for that because the Cancer rising gives the person like an intuitive nature where they can kind of read people's energy, maybe. In terms of love, this is a very romantic combination. Of course, with all of this, check your moon sign because that's part of the Holy Trinity that I look at with the inner points is the moon as well, because that will give motivation, especially with relationships, the way that you express emotions, your attitude towards emotions. But these other two signs are very romantic, and it could lead you to getting involved with someone and feeling this sentimentality towards them that makes it hard to break up with them even when the relationship gets bad. So you have to, as a Leo, really be firm with yourself about the kind of rules you have in a relationship. Like, will you let something go if it's obvious that it's not working out, or will you just kind of hang on for dear life? Because that could mean the difference between having, you know, set boundaries and being able to kind of like tell people what you're looking for. And if they don't meet those specifications, being able to move on. That's the difference between that and clinging to the relationship. Cancer can be clingy. They have claws, the crab. And so what are they clinging to? Well, likely the past, likely to the good old days when everything was working out the way they wanted it to. But as we know, life can change. And sometimes you have a good relationship and then it kind of peters out. But this is a wonderful combination for somebody who's courting someone and really impressing them with a romantic display, for sure. I think this is a great combination for a parent. I think that this combination can really accomplish both the nurturing that children need and the ability to become like a child and kind of play with one's child. Sometimes parents become too much of the authority figure and not enough of their child's guide when it comes to just having fun and playing and modeling it by, introducing different things that can help children so that it's not just about saying, don't do that, don't go there, but also, let's exercise our imagination. What can we do to get into this, create another world for ourselves? That's part of that creativity that both of these signs possess. So that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.